When you live on a lakefront ranch, you get used to a few things. Ducks at dawn, tourists taking photos, and the occasional fisherman thinking your dock is public property. What I didn't expect, though, was for HOA Karen to slap "No trespassing" signs all over my dock on behalf of the wrong people. It all started one breezy Saturday morning. I was sitting on the deck with my coffee, watching a Coast Guard helicopter do a practice landing on my dock, something they've been doing for years. See, my ranch sits on the biggest open stretch of water in the county, and because of that, the Coast Guard had permission to use my dock as a secondary emergency landing site. Everything was fine until Karen showed up. She strutted down the trail in her bright pink sun hat and giant sunglasses, phone in hand, muttering something about property beautification. I could tell she was up to no good. "Morning, Karen," I said cautiously. "Morning," she snapped. "It's afternoon, and you've got helicopters landing without HOA approval. That's a noise violation." I raised an eyebrow. "Karen, this dock isn't part of your HOA. It's on my private land. And that's the Coast Guard." She scoffed. "I don't care if it's the Space Guard. They need to file a request through me if they're using community space." "Community space?" I repeated slowly. "This is my dock on my lakefront." But Karen wasn't listening. She snapped photos, made a few calls, and stormed off muttering something about taking control of this mess. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of a hammer. I walked down to the lake and nearly dropped my mug. There she was with 2 HOA volunteers, putting up brand new aluminum signs on my dock. Each one read, "No trespassing, HOA property. Violators will be fined." She had even chained a big orange traffic barrier across the ramp and taped an HOA seal to the railing. I called out, "Karen, you've got 5 seconds to stop before you make a federal mistake." She spun around, sweaty and triumphant. "You can't threaten me. I have authority." I smiled. "Not over federal property, you don't." Right on cue, a familiar sound filled the air, the deep whup-whup-whup of rotor blades. A Coast Guard helicopter swooped low, wind whipping through the trees. They'd come in for their regular training exercise, only to find their landing pad barricaded by a woman in a sun hat. The pilot's voice came over the loudspeaker. Sir? Who's the civilian blocking our LZ?" Karen turned to me, panicking. "LZ? What's that mean?" "Landing zone," I said, grinning. "You just closed off a federal emergency access point." Before she could bolt, the Coast Guard crew landed on the adjacent pier, marched over, and started questioning her. She tried to play innocent. "I was just enforcing neighborhood safety." But when they checked the coordinates, they confirmed the dock was registered to me and leased to the U.S. Coast Guard for emergency operations. That made it federal interference. Within an hour, local police and the county commissioner arrived. The Coast Guard officers explained that obstructing an emergency landing site was a federal offense. Karen turned pale as a ghost. The officers didn't arrest her on the spot, but they did issue a hefty fine, and she was ordered to remove every single HOA sign immediately, at her own expense. The next week, I got a formal letter of apology from the HOA board. Apparently, she'd told them I abandoned the dock. The letter included a $15,000 check to cover property defacement and legal costs. Karen, she tried to play the victim, said she didn't know it was Coast Guard property. But ignorance doesn't work as an excuse when you're dealing with the federal government. Now, when the Coast Guard lands for drills, they always give me a wave and a thumbs up. And right next to the dock, I've put up a new sign in big, bold letters. U.S. Coast Guard landing zone trespassers will be fined, embarrassed, and possibly interviewed by federal agents. Last time the helicopter came down, one of the crew leaned out and shouted, "Nice sign, sir." I grinned back. "Thanks. Inspired by local talent." Would you like me to continue with 3467, where Karen calls the cops on you while you're moving into your own ranch, claiming you're an intruder?